Today on Mercedes Garage, special tools and tools needed to work on your classic and newer Mercedes-Benz on Mercedes Garage. Hi and welcome back to another episode of Mercedes Garage. Today we're going to be talking about special tools that you need, or really not so much special tools, but tools that you could need for working on your W123 or older Mercedes. We'll make another video about tools that you need for your newer Mercedes W220 and W166. 165. That'll be in a later video, but this one will be first tools for older cars, but some of them could be used on newer cars as well. First of all, the first tool that you could use is, I have it right here, a flashlight. So you can see. It comes in handy. So don't go crazy, buy yourself an $8 or $9 flashlight. This was a pack of 2 for $9 on Amazon. And by the way, they're not a sponsor, and none of these companies that I will mention are sponsors. If they would like to be sponsors, please email me. The other thing is a digital, this is like $20, laser, so you can see the laser, temperature gauge. So if you have something like, you can see my laptop, it says 94 degrees. So this will come in handy, and it's for both new cars and old cars. You could use it. You could put the light on your engine with the laser, and you could see what your temperature is. It will come in handy. So those are just two things, and they'll work on new cars as well. The other thing is, get yourself a good metric size socket set. Everything on a Mercedes is in metric because it's a foreign car. So primarily it will be 10 millimeter, 15 millimeters, 13 millimeter is probably the most commonest size socket you'll need. But do yourself a favor, get yourself a good metric socket set, which I don't have one. We'll skip that for now. So now I'll show you some pictures of some of the tools that you could use. This tool that's on the screen now there's two different sizes. One's a 13 millimeter and one's a 14, 16. I'll put the specs shown on the video. It's made by Hazlitt, and it's used for two things. One, for the drain plug, that's the part that's open, and the part that's the part with the bolt part, that is used on the rear differential. So it makes your life a lot easier by getting this kind of tool to be able to do it. The drain plug, it's not as important because there's two ways to doing an oil change. You could either suck it out with a sucker as shown on the video, one of my previous videos, or you could just use I think it's a 13 or 14, and don't quote me on that offhand, of the drain plug, and just use a socket. But what really this tool is good for is the differential. Okay, so now the next tool is, and it should be in a different, is the valve adjustment wrench. Now, these wrenches, there's a set of 3. It should be 2 long wrenches with a curve, as you can see in the photo, right here. And there's another one which is the retainer for the valve spring. So you hold the valve spring down with this wrench, and then you use the one shown here to adjust, unlock and adjust the nut for the valves. This is probably the most important tool anybody who has a W123 diesel, anyway, could have. It is the absolute most important one. Because if you never did a valve adjustment, you will be doing a valve adjustment. It's just the nature of the 616, 617, 615 engine, or any Mercedes diesel engine, really. I'm not sure how far back this set works on. Now there's alternatives. Mercedes sure sells a good part, the 2 adjustment wrenches, but they do not have the one that holds the valve spring. So I'm not sure if that's 100% needed. It's just what is said in the official Mercedes service manual that you need the 3 wrenches, 2 to adjust, 2 and 1 to hold. Now we'll go to the next tool. This is an interesting one. You may think it's an antenna, but really it's an antenna, but it's not an antenna. It looks like an antenna, but this tool, it's made by Haslett, adjusts your windshield washer nozzles. And I think it's also could be used on newer models as well, because there's a spray pattern, and on a 123 it's the passenger side or the driver's side. It's a good question. One's a single and one's a double. The double goes like this and the single goes like that. The passenger side's the double. The driver's side, no, passenger side's the single, the driver's side's the double. I will show a picture of that it's in the maintenance book. And that's where this tool comes in handy, because it will show you, based with that manual, where those sprays should be adjusted to. Yes, you could do it with a sewing needle, but it's a lot harder to then line up precisely where that spray goes. And maybe in a video I'll show you how this tool works. It's not hard. And then the needle part you just pull up or pull down or right or left, and that with this part, which is the antenna part, shows you where that will line up to on the window. The next tool, as you could see in the video, is for the fuel injector lines. Yes, you could try to get them off with a wrench. It does work, but this tool is the actual Mercedes tool for that job. And I think Haslett no longer makes it, but there is an alternative to it. They're around on eBay. You could find them. They're not that much, maybe about $20, $25. And what this does is you take off the hard, this is for the hard metal lines that are on from the injector pump to the fuel injectors. And you loosen it. I will have a video hopefully one day soon about showing how that tool works and in that. It is it's a half-inch drive, so keep that in mind. It's not the 1/4 or the 3/8 inch drive. It's the half-inch drive ratchet you need. The next set tool is important for a 123 as well as older Mercedes and some newer ones, but the newer cars are now with the hex bolts. Not the hex, the Torx. This is a hex bolt set. It's about $40 on Amazon. You could pick one up for. And this had, because there's a few, well, for example, the oil pan uses that. The transmission pan uses these. The vac pump uses this. I'm not sure how many is still used on a newer car because they went to the Torx 40, Torx 30, Torx whatever is used on the newer models versus on that car they were using the hex. There's a few, the cylinder head bolts is a Torx on, which they're calling it a hex, but it looks like a Torx, which I don't have that tool, so that's one I would have to get one day. The next one, which back to the valve adjustment, is fewer gauges. Either you could buy individual blades, you need a 10, a 15, a 20, a 25, probably a 30. That will cover you with knowing the valve adjustments properly. You could buy individual blades for the feeler gauge, or you could just buy it's like about this big, a set of them all in one holder, and that will work just as well, probably better. So that's that special tool. The next one is the socket for the fuel injectors. It's a special size. We'll put the size down below. I think it's 20 millimeters. It might be too big. But it's a deep socket. It's similar to a spark plug socket, but it has to be deep enough to clear the entire fuel injector, and that will come in handy if you're going to do any kind of fuel injector service on a 123 or older diesel, because there is no other way to get the fuel injectors out. The next tool, as you can see, is shown here on the video, is the collar that the retaining collar that the fuel injector screws into. It's important to make sure that remains tight after removal of the fuel injector, because what could happen is when you're taking out the fuel injector, you could loosen the retaining collar, and there is no other way to get that tighter or removed but using this tool here. As you can see, the bottom has two flanges like this, and it's round, and that goes into the slot on the retaining collar of that ring that goes around that, or on the cylinder. So as you can see, even though it's an old car, there is a lot of special tools, and some of them are not special. We have, the next one is coming up. Please bear with me. Here it comes. It's just an extension sockets, extension for a ratchet. This comes in handy. You will be surprised why you would need this. The next one is a breaker bar. Now, You got to be careful with a breaker bar because hence the name brake. So anything, a breaker bar or a longer handled ratchet is what you need, and that's again probably for the fuel injectors, but it has other uses as well. You could use it for tires, you could use it for that. The next tool is a Dremel. You know, you may need to get into somewhere to cut something off, get into polish or clean rust off, like the fuel injector pump I have. There's a little rust. So you get in there and you could use a wire brush attachment to clean in there and get all that off. So that comes in handy. Next is a pick tool set, because when you remove the injectors, there's a heat shield that you have to remove, because that's what protects the injector from the heat from the engine. And you need one of these pick tools to lift that up. There is no other way to get it off. And also they come in handy for taking off tighter O-rings that are perished, or stretching the O-ring off. But remember, when you use one of these tools on an O-ring that you're replacing, be careful you don't accidentally nick the O-ring with the sharper point. So it might be a good idea to maybe sand down that point. And another tool which is important is a set of torque wrenches. You need you don't have to go crazy with torque wrenches like I did, but you need to have a torque wrench that has a wide range. You need one that does foot inches and one that does foot pounds or Newton meters. It probably would be easier to get one that does Newton meters, because everything is in Newton meters anyway, so that way you won't have to do a bunch of conversioning to foot pounds or foot pounds to Newton meters. But it is written on the side of them that some of them do both foot pounds and Newton meters. It just some do and some don't. But make sure you get a torque wrench or torque wrenches that are the small, medium, and large size ones that cover pretty much everything up to about 150, 200 foot-pounds, because you will need a torque wrench, or at least 2 or 3 different sizes of torque wrenches. And here's another one. This one is in Newton meters only. And the next tool is to knowing how much tension is on your belts. Now, you could do it one or two ways. You could push down on the belt and pull up on the belt. But in the Mercedes service manual, there's points where you should do that test. And also it tells you, for example, 10 pounds deflection. Well, this is what this tool does. You put it on your finger and you push down on the belt, and it will tell you how much deflection or pull, you could do it either way, you have. And corresponding in the book, in the manual, it will tell you if that's in spec or out of spec. So that's an important tool to have as well. Or you could just do it the old-fashioned way. That tool does not work on serpentine belts, so keep that in mind. The next tool is crow's feet. Crow's feet come in handy for multiple purposes. One of them is to remove the fuel injector primer pump. The other thing is the extension for the crow's feet. Make sure you get a long enough extension because there's some tighter spots that you can't reach and you will need an extension on that. As you can see here, it's a set of 3. The next one is if you're doing any kind of AC work on your Mercedes, get a manifold gauge. Don't try to put in refrigerant 134A or if you have some R12 laying around but remember R12 is a different gauge numbers than 134A. Some manifold gauges do both, some do not. Check to make sure which one you have for your application. This one I think does both, if I remember correctly. I haven't looked at it for a while. So if you doing AC work, do yourself a favor, get a manifold gauge. It will save you a lot of grief. Either overfilling or underfilling, not needing to be refilled, but make sure you read the directions that come with it. The next tool is a cord removal tool, because one of the most common problems with leaking Mercedes ACs is the Schrader valve on the service and on the service and the high pressure side could be bad. Now remember, if you're using this tool, do not do it with the system full of refrigerant. Only do it if the system has been professionally evacuated at a dealer or at a service station or an AC shop. Do not try to use this tool with a system that is pressurized or has any refrigerant. 1, it's illegal. 2, you're going to release all the refrigerant out. So don't do that. Okay? I'm saying this because hopefully people out there who are watching these videos will realize that and just don't do it. They do make one that you can do it with a system that has a charge, has pressure. I don't have that one because I think the tool is like almost $150 just for that one tool. So if you're doing that, just do it on an empty system. The next tool is a can tap. That comes in handy for the can. And another tool that you need for an older Mercedes or newer Mercedes or any car really is a multimeter. You don't need to spend $400 or $500 on a Fluke or one of those. Just a basic voltmeter that will give you voltage, ampage, which I think this one doesn't do amp, it does DC amps, ohms, which I have that one here too. So just a basic one. This is around $30. It's Innova. It's a pretty good one. I've had it for several years. The next tool is, let me get this to the, is this is made by D-Tech, but you could buy one from any company. It's a USB oscilloscope, or you could be a little fancier and buy the one that has the screen already built in and that, but they're more money. This one's about $25. You could get this on Amazon as well. Not a sponsor. Would be nice if they were a sponsor, but okay. You could use this to scope, see what's going on down your air vents. Could use it in your fuel tank, which that's a video which hopefully one day we'll be making soon, to see if you have rust in your fuel tank. Use it in your scope down in your engine, see what's going on in there. Take out your spark plugs if you have a non-diesel and see what's going on in there. So you do need a laptop to get this to work because it's a USB. It will not work any other way. Okay, we're back. The next tool is important for the glow plugs. This is one of the ways you could use. This is a little compact ratchet, open ratchet that you could get in there and take off the pencil type glow plugs. The filament type is probably slightly different. Another one is a caliper gauge. This is a digital one. They're not that much. You could get it on Amazon. The next tool is the ball joint removal tool. I don't remember who makes it. It's not Hazlitt. What you do is you put it in, as what the picture is showing, you put it in there and you turn it and the pops the ball joint out. Don't ask why I bought that. I did. This is the Hazlitt version of the glow plug remover, the pencil type glow plug removal tool. Remember, the filament type is larger, so it's a different tool you'll need to remove those. This is just a plastic wedge to prying things off. This is a set of plastic wedges. This is a little bit of this is an air blow tool, and this is a very important tool for the glow plugs. This is the Hazlitt version of the glow plug reamer, which is important to, when you remove the old glow plugs, you have to ream out the hole to clean out the carbon buildup with this tool. And there's other kinds, but pretty much that, I think there's one that's a little longer, because every time I've seen that tool, I don't think it's long enough to get in there. This is a water pitcher which has a measurement. This comes in handy if you're filling up oil or you're filling up antifreeze. If you're doing antifreeze, don't put the oil in there because you don't want to put oil in your antifreeze. So you may have to get two separate ones, one for the oil, one for antifreeze. It's just a funnel. This is a drain pan that you could put all your old fluids. And now another thing is, remember, these are heavy cars. 123 sedan weighs, US model automatic transmission weighs almost 3,300 pounds. It's 3,350 to be exact, 3,250. An S-Class, 2006 S-Class weighs 4,500 pounds. A GLE weighs 4,600 pounds, 4,700 pounds. So these are big, heavy cars. Do yourself a favor, buy a good, strong, sturdy jack. Don't buy a cheap jack, but don't buy one that's $400 or $500. That's crazy. But they're all going to be made in China anyway. But make sure you buy a brand name, is what I'm saying. Don't buy Easy Jack or Jack Tech or something like that, because it's your life basically that you're risking when you're jacking up a car. So you got to get yourself a good jack, get yourself a strong jack, at least one that's a 2.5 to 3 ton capacity or more. It doesn't have to be one of those low profile aluminum jacks. You don't need that. Just get a good, strong brand name jack. This one is OTC. They were cheaper then, now they're more. Just make sure you get a good, and also use a pad underneath it. It's a little rubber biscuit, looks like. I'll show you that in another video. It protects your underbody because of the coatings underneath there. You don't want to scratch up the underbody of your 123 or whatever other Mercedes model. That applies to any model, but and also too, if you get a jack, get a good pair of jack stands. Just what I'm saying is from a reputable company, a reputable brand. The next one is a large size socket set in millimeters. Yes, the set's I've had it for a couple of years. I think it was around $60, $70. But it's cheaper if you there's a 46 millimeter socket that everybody who's worked on a 123 will say they need. Because it's the 46 millimeter socket that you need to do the fuel sender and to do the fuel screen. Yes, there is a special tool that's made by BAUM Tools. It's about $90. So for $70, you could buy a whole set of the tools. So it's a little more cost effective to buy the whole set, because I guarantee you one day you'll need the 35 millimeter or the 30 millimeter, but I think it was in here. I'll have to look. I haven't looked at it for a while. That you'll need, and then you'll say, oh, I should have bought the set. So buy yourself the set. It'll work. Now the only problem is you have to use, I think it's a 1-inch drive on this. You have to use the big ratchet with it, and that's going to be a bit of a clearance issue with your rear window, which I tapped it a little bit. I did not break it or crack it, but I did whack it. That was before YouTube videos. So word of advice, put a towel around it or something padded, piece of foam, so if you do whack it, hopefully it won't crack it, because the rear window's unavailable anymore. You would have to try to find a used one, and you really don't want to break it. So that's a top tip there. Be careful when taking out your rear fuel sender. The other one is, this is a bar torque wrench, which comes in handy. It's not as, and this is a smaller torque wrench for, like I said, make sure you get one that does foot inches, foot pounds, and gives you a very broad range of torques, because there's a lot of torque settings on a 123 and also other Mercedes models, which we'll discuss later, which special tools. This is a special tool that was made from Mercedes, but this is a copy of that tool. This was made from Mercedes Source, which I'll put a link to their website. They sell some of these special tools as well. And everybody who has a Mercedes or an older Mercedes knows Mr. Ken Bergsman. I can. Not a sponsor, but would be nice if they would be one. This is a spout tool that tests your injector timing of your car. It's a fuel injector pump, which is important to check every so often on a diesel 123. I think it also works. It works on all. It will work on a 126 diesel because it's the same engine. And this is also from Mercedes Source. This is their version of the door popper, which I did test it out a little bit. It does work well. We'll show you that in an upcoming video of removing. Probably I have to remove the two front doors and the rear door. That'll be a fun one. And this is the famous injector pump pressure tester, which everybody who has a 123 diesel knows this tool. It's the tool. I do have one. It's a used one. Hopefully it works. We'll show you that in an upcoming video one day of how that tool works and the pressure that you need for the fuel injection. This other one is a S-shaped or curved shaped tool. This was also from Mercedes. I'm not sure if they still have this tool. They should. There's a nut behind the injector pump, and that allows you to reach it better to adjust it, because there's an adjustment for the injector pump. Either you turn it towards the engine or you turn it away to the engine. It's similar. It's advancing and retarding the timing of the injector pump. So that's another tool that could come in handy in fixing your 123 diesels, or it's not for gasoline, it's only for a diesel. This is a good tool too. This, you've ever noticed you have bent radiator or condenser fins on your radiator or condenser or heater core, if you could get to it. This tool, I got this from Pelican, not a sponsor. You could reshape your bent fins on your radiator or condenser or heater core. I guess it could do a heater core. If it's same as a radiator or a condenser, it should be able. And this will work on newer cars as well as older cars, and it doesn't have to be a Mercedes. Anything with a radiator or condenser, this will work on. And it has different sizes on the brushes. It's okay. Like I said, with that radiator tool, you could use it on new cars. It doesn't even have to be a Mercedes. Anything with a radiator or condenser, it'll work on. The next tool is a fuel pressure gauge, which I haven't tried that one yet. We'll have to do a video on that. It measures the fuel pressure of your engine. I think this one only works on diesel. I'm not sure. The next tool is if you're doing any kind of air conditioner work, and remember what I said earlier, only on a system that was professionally evacuated. This is a pump that you need to suck out the air that gets into the system after it's been discharged. So this pump will suck out the pressure, creating a negative pressure in your AC system, and there you could then refill it. But remember, you can only use this on a system that has been depressurized. So that's, I think that's, oh, and the other one's a scale. This is a little digital scale, $5–10. You can measure your Freon, you can measure different things to make sure that the weight's the correct weight. So that's basically some of the special tools, or some of the tools that I got over the years to work on a 123. Now, in another video, we'll do newer Mercedes, which some of the tools are the same and some of them are different. So it's another avenue down the adventures of Mercedes-Benz ownership, and if you want to do any of the working on them yourself, you're going to have to get some tools and some special tools for that matter. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. Thank you for the 39 subscribers. Please consider subscribing. If you're not subscribed, you'll be notified when a new video comes out, which I try to have them every few days, more or less. So remember, keep motoring in your Mercedes-Benz. Until next time, thank you for watching. Goodbye.